Extreme sports are not safe. They were never meant to be. They exist in that narrow space where skill, experience, and control barely hold chaos together. And even then, people who actually train for them still die. Now here's the interesting part. None of the people in this video were professionals. They weren't trained. They weren't certified. They weren't even particularly prepared. But they all had one thing in common. They believed they were close enough to try, close enough to handle it, close enough to skip the part that actually keeps people alive. Because that's the illusion. You watch enough clips, read enough comments, buy the right gear, and suddenly it feels like you've earned something. Like you've absorbed skill through proximity. But skill doesn't transfer like that. It's built slowly, painfully, with repetition, failure, correction, and respect for the fact that you're not in control yet. These people skipped that part. They went straight to the highlight reel, straight to the moment that looks impressive, without understanding what makes it survivable. And that's where everything breaks. Because extreme sports don't forgive shortcuts. They don't reward confidence. They don't care how sure you feel. They only respond to one thing: competence. And if you don't have it, they don't teach you. They end you. These are 10 people who stepped into environments designed to punish mistakes without ever learning what those mistakes look like. 10 moments where "I think I can do this" met "you absolutely cannot." And every single one of them found out the same thing, too late. Number 1. The mountain ride that had no brakes. There are safe ways to do dangerous things, and then there are people who see those safe ways and immediately assume they're optional. That's how this started. A snowy mountain resort, wide slopes, clear skies, the kind of place where everything looks controlled, even when it isn't. Tourists everywhere. Families, beginners, people just there for the view. And among them, a group that wasn't interested in safe. They were interested in fun. Not normal fun, not ride-the-mark track fun. Something better, something faster, something that feels like a story worth telling later. They found it. A giant inflatable Zorb. A massive transparent ball, big enough to fit a person inside, designed to roll down a controlled path. Key word, controlled. Because the track it was meant for? Wide. Guided. Engineered so the ball doesn't build too much speed, so it doesn't drift, so it doesn't turn into exactly what they were about to turn it into. But when you're standing at the top of a mountain, looking at a wide open slope, controlled starts to feel like a limitation. Why follow the track when you have all this space? Why settle for safe when you can go bigger? That's the logic. Not stupid in the obvious way, just confident. Confident enough to ignore the difference between "this is how it's designed to work" and "this is what happens when you remove the design." So they set it up. No track, no barriers, no plan beyond push it and see what happens. Now let's pause, because a Zorb is not a vehicle. It doesn't steer, it doesn't brake, it doesn't correct. It rolls. That's it. And rolling downhill means accelerating, constantly. And once that starts, you don't guide it, you're inside it, along for whatever path gravity decides. But none of that matters in the moment, because the moment feels exciting. The kind of excitement that makes bad ideas feel right. They climb in, close it up, laughter, shouting, because from the outside, this looks like fun, like something you'll laugh about later. They give it a push, and at first, it works exactly how they imagined. The ball rolls, smooth, slow, controlled, for about 3 seconds. Then the slope changes, just slightly, enough. The speed picks up, not dramatically, but noticeably. And that's when control starts to disappear, because speed changes everything. The ball begins to drift, left, right, not predictable, because the surface isn't uniform. Snow packs differently, angles shift. Tiny variations turn into direction, and direction turns into trajectory. Inside, the laughter changes, not instantly, but you can hear it. That shift from fun to something else, something less certain. They try to adjust, shift weight, lean, because instinct tells you movement equals control. But that's not how this works. Inside a sphere, you don't steer, you tumble. And now they're not riding it, they're being moved by it. The speed increases again, faster now. The kind of speed where reaction doesn't keep up, where the environment starts coming at you, instead of you moving through it. The ball hits uneven ground, a bump, small, but enough. It lifts slightly, comes down harder, and that impact removes whatever stability was left. Now it's not rolling cleanly, it's bouncing, rotating unpredictably. And every rotation adds force, adds chaos, adds speed. This is the point where the situation stops being reversible, because there's no slowing down, no exit, no way to step out. Just momentum, building, relentless, until it finds something to stop it. And mountains don't offer soft endings. There's no smooth finish line, no controlled stop. Just terrain, trees, drops, whatever happens to be in the path. The ball veers, not by choice, by slope. And the slope doesn't care. It guides them straight into something solid. The impact is immediate, violent, final. Because all that speed, all that mass, has to go somewhere. And it does, all at once. The mountain returns to silence, exactly how it was before. Because nothing here changed. The slope is still the slope. The snow is still the snow. The only difference is what happened when someone decided they didn't need the part that made it safe. Because in the end, they didn't lose to the mountain. They didn't lose to the Zorb. They lost to the idea that removing control would somehow make the experience better. But control isn't optional. It's the only reason dangerous things don't end like this every time. Number 2. The pilot who skipped the sky. There are 2 ways to learn how to fly. One takes years, training, mistakes, muscle memory built under supervision. The other? Wi-Fi. And guess which one he chose? He didn't see flying as a skill. He saw it as access. Because now, you don't need a school. You don't need an instructor. You don't even need experience. You just need a few hours of POV footage, a couple of tutorials, and a checkout button. That's the modern shortcut. Watch enough videos, and your brain starts to believe, I understand this. Not consciously, subtly. Because familiarity feels like competence, even when it isn't. So when he discovered speedwing flying, he didn't see danger, he saw possibility. A small wing, a short run, a jump, a glide. Simple. That's how it looks. That's how it sells. And once something looks simple, people assume it is. He watched the clips, over and over. Clean launches, smooth descents. People carving through air like they were born there. And the more he watched, the more one idea formed. They're not doing anything I couldn't do. That's the moment. The exact moment where curiosity turns into delusion. Because what he didn't see was everything cut out of those videos. The failed launches, the aborted runs, the years of learning how not to die. All invisible, all replaced by highlights. So he did what modern confidence always does. He ordered the gear. Wing, harness, helmet. Delivered, clean, new, untouched by reality. Now pause, because buying equipment does not buy understanding. It just gives you the illusion of it. But once you have it in your hands, it feels real, feels official, feels like you're ready. And that feeling is enough. So he finds a mountain, not a training hill, not a controlled site, a real one. High, open, perfect. Because if you're going to do something like this, why start small? That's the mindset. Skip the basics. Go straight to the version that looks impressive. He gets to the edge, wind moving across the slope. Not violent, but not still. And wind is everything in this sport. Direction, speed, timing, all of it matters. But to him, it's just air. Something you feel, not something you read. He sets up the wing, follows what he remembers, or what he thinks he remembers, Because watching and doing are not the same thing, not even close. The fabric lifts slightly, flutters, doesn't behave the way it did in the videos, because in videos, everything is already correct. Here, nothing is. But he's committed now, and commitment replaces hesitation. He grips, steps forward, starts running. This is the moment, the launch, where everything depends on coordination, timing, adjustment, all the things he doesn't have. The wing catches air, but not cleanly, not centered, not stable. It pulls, slightly off balance, and instead of correcting, he commits harder, runs faster, because speed feels like control. But speed without control is just acceleration toward a mistake. His footing shifts, the ground drops away, and now he's airborne, but not flying, falling with equipment. Because flight isn't just being in the air, it's controlling what happens next. And he can't. The wing oscillates, unstable, responding to inputs he doesn't understand, inputs he doesn't even know he's giving. Small movements translate into large changes, and he doesn't know how to stop them, or smooth them, or even recognize them. The ground comes closer, faster than expected, because glide path isn't guesswork, it's skill. And without it, distance disappears quickly. He tries to adjust, pull, shift, anything. But reaction without knowledge is random, and random doesn't fix instability, it amplifies it. The wing dips. One side collapses slightly, just enough. Enough to remove what little balance remained, and now it's over. Not gradually, not dramatically, just the final consequence of everything that came before. The impact is not surprising. It's inevitable. Because once he left the ground, the outcome was already decided. He just hadn't reached it yet. The mountain stays the same. The air keeps moving. Because nothing here failed. The system worked perfectly. Air behaved like air. Gravity behaved like gravity. The only thing missing was the part that makes humans compatible with both. Training. Because in the end, he didn't try to fly. He tried to skip learning how. And the sky is not something you improvise. Number 3. The climb that looked the same until it didn't. There's a certain type of intelligence that's just dangerous enough to get you killed. Not ignorance, not recklessness, something worse. Approximation. The belief that if two things look similar, they must work the same. Because from a distance, they do. An ice axe is just a stick with a metal head. A garden hoe is also a stick with a metal head. Same shape, same idea, same result, right? That's the logic. Not shouted, not argued, just quietly accepted. And once that idea settles in, everything else becomes optional. He wasn't trying to prove anything, not to anyone else, just to himself, that he didn't need all the expensive gear, all the specialized tools, all the professional nonsense. Because people love to believe one thing. They're overcomplicating it. That experts are just adding layers, charging money, making things seem harder than they are. And that belief is incredibly attractive, because it puts you in control. It tells you, you can do this your own way. So he did. He skipped the gear shop, skipped the training, skipped the part where someone tells you what you don't know. And instead, he went to a hardware store, picked up what felt right, what looked right, and in his mind, what was right. Garden hose, heavy, metal, sharp enough, close enough. Now let's pause, because ice climbing is not about pulling yourself up. It's about placement, precision, angle, penetration depth, load distribution. Every swing of an ice axe is controlled, measured, designed to hold body weight, not just make contact. And the tool matters, the material matters, the geometry matters, but none of that is obvious until it fails. And failure in this context is not gradual, it's instant. He gets to the climb, cold air, frozen wall, the kind of environment that doesn't care about improvisation. He looks up, sees the path, sees the holds, or what he thinks are holds, because in his mind, this is just vertical work, Up is up. Grip is grip. Effort is enough. He starts. First swing. The tool hits. Bounces slightly. Not clean, but it sticks. Enough. And that's the most dangerous moment. Because partial success confirms bad ideas. It tells you, see, it works. So he commits. Second swing. Higher. More force. More confidence. Because now, he's not testing anymore. He's climbing. Foot placement. Push upward. Weight transfers. Everything feels possible. Not smooth, not controlled, but working. And that's enough. Because perfection isn't required, just progress. He moves again, higher. The ground gets further away. The exposure increases, but so does belief. Because every step reinforces the same idea. I figured it out. And that's where things break. Not physically, mentally. Because once you believe the system works, you stop checking if it actually does. He swings again, harder this time, trying to gain height faster. Because now, he trusts it. The metal hits the ice, but not the way it should. Not clean, not secure, just embedded, slightly. And that's the problem. Because ice doesn't forgive bad placement. It holds until it doesn't. He pulls, full weight, commitment. And in that exact moment, everything he assumed gets tested. The metal shifts. Not much, just enough. Enough to change the load. Enough to remove stability. Enough to break the illusion. The tool slips, sudden, violent, uncontrolled. And now, there's nothing left holding him in place. No backup. No redundancy. Because redundancy requires planning, and planning requires respect for failure. He has neither. The second tool can't compensate because it was never designed to. And now, gravity takes over. Immediately. Completely. There's no recovery. No second attempt. Just the direct result of every shortcut taken. The wall stays where it is. The ice remains exactly the same. Because it didn't fail. It did exactly what physics told it to do. Reject weak placement. And he didn't lose to the climb. He lost to the assumption that close enough is the same as correct. That shape equals function. That tools are interchangeable just because they look similar. But in the end, they're not. And when the difference matters, it doesn't explain itself. It just shows you, all at once. Number 4. The river that didn't care about his confidence. Water looks soft. That's the first mistake. From a distance, it feels forgiving, fluid, flexible, something you move through, not something that stops you. And that illusion has convinced a lot of people that water is safe. It isn't. Especially not when it's moving. Especially not when it's designed to move fast. And definitely not when people who understand it still treat it like something that can kill them. He didn't. Because to him, this wasn't danger. This was experience. A river, a kayak, a chance to try something new. And like a lot of beginners, he didn't start small, didn't start slow, didn't start where mistakes are allowed. He went straight to the version that looks exciting. Whitewater, fast, loud, violent. The kind of water that doesn't flow, it attacks. Now here's the thing about whitewater kayaking. It's not just sitting in a boat and paddling. It's reading water, understanding current, knowing where not to be, and most importantly, knowing how to get out when everything goes wrong. Because everything does go wrong. That's part of the sport. But that's also why people train. Pools, controlled flips, repetition. So when the river takes over, your body already knows what to do. He skipped all of that, because from the outside, it doesn't look that complicated. People paddle, they move forward, they stay upright. Simple. So he rented the gear, boat, paddle, spray skirt. And that last one, that's important, because a spray skirt isn't just equipment. It seals you into the kayak, keeps water out, keeps you connected to the boat, which is great when you know how to get out. He didn't. But at this point, That detail feels small. Everything feels small, because the river hasn't done anything yet. He gets in, pushes off, and for a moment, it's calm. Gentle current, easy movement, just like he expected. And that's the trap, because early calm convinces you the whole thing will be like this. It won't. The river changes, gradually at first, then quickly. The sound shifts, from quiet movement to constant noise. Water hitting rock, colliding, breaking. And now, he's not moving through it, he's being carried by it. Faster, harder, less control. The kayak turns, not by choice, by current. He tries to correct, paddle harder, but effort isn't control. Not here. Because the river decides direction. He's just reacting to it. Too late. Every time. Then it happens. A small shift. A tilt. The kind of imbalance that experienced kayakers correct instantly. He doesn't. Because correction isn't instinct. It's training. And without training, there is no correction. The kayak flips. Fast. Total. 1 second upright, the next, underwater. And this is where everything matters. Because flipping isn't the problem. It's what comes after. Experienced paddlers roll, reset, continue, or they pull the release. Exit clean. He doesn't, because he doesn't know how. Now he's upside down, in moving water, trapped. And the boat is still attached to him, because the spray skirt did its job perfectly, too perfectly. He tries to move, pull, push, find something, but underwater, everything is disorientation, noise, pressure, no clear direction, no stable reference, and panic doesn't help. Panic makes everything faster, breathing shorter, movements sharper, less controlled. He reaches for the skirt, but finding it and releasing it is not automatic, not when you've never practiced it, not when the river is still moving, still pulling, still dragging everything forward, including him. Time compresses, not because it slows, but because there isn't enough of it. And the river doesn't stop, it doesn't pause, it doesn't give you space to figure things out. It continues, exactly as it was, exactly as it always does. And that's the difference. The river didn't become dangerous. It always was. The only thing that changed was when he entered it, without understanding it, without preparing for it, without knowing what happens when control disappears. Because in the end, he didn't lose to bad luck. He didn't lose to a rare situation. He lost to something much simpler. He treated the river like something you try, instead of something you learn first. And water doesn't teach gently. It just keeps moving until you don't. Number 5. The jump that looked easy on camera. There's a reason parkour videos look effortless, because you're watching the part that worked, not the attempts, not the failed jumps, not the months of learning how your body reacts to distance, height, and impact. Just the moment where everything goes right. And when you only see that part, your brain fills in the rest. It's just jumping. That's the mistake. Because parkour isn't jumping. It's measurement. It's timing. It's knowing exactly how far your body can go and where it absolutely cannot. He didn't know any of that, but he had something else. Exposure. Hours of clips. POV footage. People sprinting across rooftops like gravity was optional. And after enough of that, it starts to feel familiar, like something you understand, even if you've never done it. So one day, he decided to try. Not in a gym, not in a controlled space, on a rooftop. Because if you're going to do something like this, it has to look real. Industrial buildings, flat surfaces, gaps between structures, the kind of place that turns a mistake into distance, vertical distance. Now pause, because parkour athletes don't just jump, they calculate. Step count, takeoff angle, landing surface, friction, edge depth, all of it matters. All of it determines whether you land or don't. But to him, A gap is just a gap. You run, you jump, you clear it. Simple. That's how it looks. He steps back, eyes on the space between buildings. It doesn't look far. That's another trap, because distance is deceptive from above. What looks manageable often isn't, especially when your only reference is a video, shot with a wide lens, edited to remove hesitation. He takes a breath, starts running. And this part feels right. Momentum builds, body moves forward, everything lines up with what he's seen, because running is easy, familiar, predictable. The jump is not. He reaches the edge, pushes off, and for a moment, it feels perfect. Airborne, weightless, exactly like the videos. But here's the difference. In the videos, they make it. In reality, he doesn't. Because distance isn't negotiated mid-air. It's decided at takeoff. And his takeoff was wrong. Not by much, just enough. Enough to change everything. His feet reach the edge, but not fully, not solid, not secure. The front of his shoes make contact, a fraction. The rest doesn't. And that's the moment. The exact point where control disappears. Because partial contact is not landing. It's slipping. His body continues forward. Momentum doesn't stop, just because the surface did. There's no recovery, no second push, no adjustment. Because you don't get a second chance mid-air. The edge becomes nothing. And now, there's no surface left, just gravity. And gravity is immediate. There's no delay, no hesitation, just downward motion. Fast, uninterrupted. Because once you leave the roof is no longer part of the equation. The buildings remain, still, unchanged. Because they didn't move. They didn't shift. They didn't cause anything. They just existed, exactly where they always were. And he didn't lose to the jump. He lost to the assumption that watching something is the same as understanding it. That exposure equals experience. That if it looks easy, it is. But easy on camera is often the result of difficulty you never saw. And when you skip that part, you don't get a version that's slightly worse. You get something completely different. Because in the end, parkour didn't fail him. Physics didn't surprise him. He just entered a system that doesn't adjust itself for people who haven't learned it yet. Number 6, the launch that came back. Personally, there's a level of confidence you only find in a backyard. Somewhere between a cooler full of beer, a pile of tools, and a group of people who all agree, yeah, this should work. Because in that environment, ideas don't get tested, they get encouraged. And the more ridiculous the idea, the more likely someone says, do it. That's how this starts. Not with engineering, not with planning, just a question. What happens if we launch something straight up? Now normally, that question ends with another one. And then, where does it come down? But not here. Here, the focus is on the first half, the launch, the spectacle, the moment it leaves the ground. Because that's the part that looks impressive. So they build it. 2 posts, industrial tubing, a frame that looks like it belongs in a cartoon, not reality. But to them, it's innovation, it's creativity, it's a project. And most importantly, it's content. Because none of this matters if nobody sees it. So the camera comes out. Of course it does. Because if you're about to do something incredibly stupid, you document it. Now they need a payload, something big, something solid, something that feels worth launching. They choose a watermelon, perfect, heavy enough to feel real, cheap enough to not care, at least on the way up. Now let's pause, because when you launch something into the air, you're not sending it away. You're borrowing time. Because gravity is patient, it doesn't interrupt, it waits, and then it collects. But none of that is part of the plan, because the plan ends at the launch. They load the watermelon into the sling, pull the tubing back, further, further, because more tension means more height, and more height means better footage. Everything feels right. The structure holds, the angle looks good, the setup works, which is the most dangerous confirmation, because when something works early, people stop questioning it. Now comes the decision that matters most: where to stand, because position determines outcome. Stand to the side, you watch. Stand underneath, you participate. He chooses underneath, because from there, he can track it, watch it rise, follow it, be part of the moment, and in his mind, that means control. I'll just step away when it comes down. Simple. That's the assumption. They release it. The launch is violent, immediate. The watermelon shoots upward, fast, higher than expected, cleaner than expected. For a brief moment, everything is perfect, exactly what they imagined. He looks up, tracking it, eyes locked. Because this is the payoff. This is the shot. It gets smaller, smaller, then disappears into the sun. And that's the problem, because now he can't see it. Looking straight into bright sky, your vision doesn't track objects, it loses them. But he keeps searching, scanning, waiting. I can't see it. That's the last clear thought, because while he's looking up, something else has already started moving down. The watermelon reaches its peak, pauses, just for a fraction, and begins its return. Same path, same speed, same destination. But now, there's no awareness, no tracking, no reaction, because you can't avoid something you don't know is there. The object falls, faster, faster, and from his perspective, it never reappears, because by the time it does, it's already there. The impact is instant, no warning, no buildup, just the exact result of mass, height, gravity. Everything they built worked perfectly. The launch, the trajectory, the system, nothing failed. Except the thinking. Because in the end, he didn't get hit by bad luck. He got hit by his own idea. Because what goes up doesn't just come down. It comes back to wherever you decided to stand. Number 7. The jump that wasn't a ramp. There's a difference between a stunt park and real terrain. In one, everything is designed. Angles calculated, landings shaped, surfaces packed and tested. In the other, nothing is built for you. It just exists. And that difference is invisible until you hit it. He didn't see that because what he saw was a highlight reel. Motocross clips, perfect jumps, riders flying through the air like it was controlled, like distance was predictable, like landing was guaranteed. And after enough of that, it stops looking like skill. It starts looking like something you can try. That's the shift, from respect to imitation. So he got the bike, not a toy, a real dirt bike. Powerful, loud, fast enough to feel legitimate. Because equipment creates confidence, even when nothing else does. He takes it out to a sand dune, wide, open, empty. The kind of place that feels like a playground. No obstacles, no limits, just space. And in that space, he sees it. A rise in the terrain, smooth, curved, perfect. From a distance, it looks like a ramp. Natural, clean, exactly like something you'd launch off. But here's the problem. A ramp is shaped for takeoff. A dune is shaped by wind. Not for you, not for landing, not for anything predictable. But that difference only matters if you understand it. He doesn't. Because from where he stands, it looks right. And looks right is enough. He lines up, engine revs, the sound fills the air. That low mechanical confidence. Because machines feel reliable, even when the person controlling them isn't. He accelerates, straight toward it, speed building, wind pushing against him. Everything feels powerful, controlled, because speed feels like control, right up until it isn't. Now let's pause, because jumping a bike is not about the jump. It's about what happens after. Angle of takeoff, trajectory, landing slope, suspension response. All of it has to match, or it doesn't work. But he's not calculating, he's committing. He hits the rise, throttle still open, the front lifts, the bike leaves the ground, and for a moment, it's exactly what he imagined. Air, silence, weightless. That perfect split second where it feels like success. But here's the part he didn't see, the other side of the dune. Because from his angle, it looked like a smooth continuation. It isn't. It drops. Sharp. Steeper than expected. Because dunes don't build landing ramps. They build edges. And now, his trajectory doesn't match the terrain at all. He comes down, but not onto a slope, onto a drop. And that changes everything. Because landing requires absorption, a surface that takes impact and gives it back gradually. This doesn't. This is sudden, hard, immediate. The bike hits, front wheel first. Too steep, too fast, too direct. The suspension compresses, but not enough, because it wasn't designed for this. The force transfers, upward, into him. And now, control is gone. The bike doesn't roll out, it stops, violently. And he keeps moving, forward. Because momentum doesn't disappear, it redirects. He's no longer riding, he's being thrown. The machine that gave him confidence is no longer part of the solution, it's part of the problem. Everything ends in one motion, clean, brutal, final. The dune stays the same, unchanged, because it didn't fail. It wasn't wrong. It wasn't dangerous by design. It just wasn't built for him. Because in the end, he didn't lose to speed. He didn't lose to the bike. He lost to the assumption that natural terrain behaves like something engineered. That if it looks like a ramp, it is. But nature doesn't design for your landing. It doesn't care about your angle. It doesn't adjust. It just exists. And if you treat it like something it's not, it doesn't correct you. It finishes the lesson immediately. Number 8. The cage that wasn't for sharks. There's a certain type of confidence that only shows up after watching too many documentaries. The kind where you don't just learn something, you start believing you understand it. Not the basics, the system, the behavior, the rules. And once you think you understand the rules, you start thinking you can rewrite them. That's where this starts. Not in the ocean, in a living room. Scrolling. Watching footage of shark cage diving, massive predators circling calmly around steel cages. Tourists inside, safe, protected, controlled. From the outside, it looks simple. A cage is a cage, metal is metal, and sharks? They just swim around. That's the illusion, because what you're not seeing is everything behind it. The design, the spacing of the bars, the structural integrity, the way it's anchored, tested, refined, built specifically to handle something that can bite through bone like it's soft plastic. But none of that is obvious. What's obvious is the result. People inside, sharks outside. No problem. And that's all he needed. Because once something looks repeatable, people assume it is. So he decides to do it himself. Not with professionals, not with certified equipment, because that costs money. And money is something people love to save, especially when they think they found a shortcut. So he builds one, not from marine-grade steel, not from engineered materials, from what he knows, what he has, what feels strong. Rebar, chain link fencing, the kind used to keep dogs in, not predators out. But again, from a distance, it looks right. Square shape, metal frame, enclosure. Same concept. That's enough. Now, let's pause, because sharks don't test things gently. They don't inspect. They don't evaluate. They bite. That's how they understand the world. And what they bite either holds or doesn't. There's no middle. But in his version, this isn't a test. It's an experience. A cheaper version of something expensive. A smarter way to do the same thing. So he takes it out, into open water, drops it in, climbs inside. Because if you're going to do something like this, you commit. That's the mindset. Commitment over caution. Confidence over preparation. The cage sinks slightly, stabilizes. Water around him, quiet, calm. For a moment, it works. Nothing happens. No movement, no threat. And that's the confirmation. See? It's fine. Because early silence feels like safety. But silence, in the ocean, doesn't mean absence. It means waiting. Something approaches. Slow. Curious. Not aggressive. Just interested. Because from the shark's perspective, this isn't a threat. It's something new. Something to test. It circles. Once. Twice. Closer. And now, this is the moment. The moment where real systems are proven. Not in theory, in contact. The shark moves in, opens its jaw, and bites. Not violently, not dramatically, just naturally. Because that's what it does. And instantly, the difference becomes clear. Professional cages hold. This one doesn't. The metal bends. Not all at once, just enough. Enough to create space. Enough to change structure. Enough to turn barrier into gap. And that's all it takes. Because containment doesn't fail gradually. It fails at the point where something gets through. And now, there is no separation. No inside, no outside. Just proximity. Immediate. Uncontrolled. Final. The ocean doesn't react, doesn't change, because nothing here is unexpected. This is exactly how it works. The shark did what it always does. The water moved the way it always does. The only thing that changed was the assumption that something built to look safe is safe. Because in the end, he didn't lose to the shark. He lost to the idea that copying something visually means recreating its function. That if it looks like a cage, it behaves like one. But function isn't appearance. And in environments like this, that difference isn't theoretical. It's immediate and irreversible. Number 9. The rope that wasn't. A calculation. There are two kinds of people who do bungee jumping. People who understand the math, and people who think the math is optional. He was the second type. Because from the outside, bungee jumping looks simple. You tie a cord, you jump. The cord stretches, you bounce. That's it. No mystery, no complexity. Just physics. And that's exactly the problem. Because when something gets reduced to just physics, people assume it's easy, predictable, something you can approximate. And approximation is what kills you here. He didn't go to a company, didn't book a jump, didn't trust professionals. Because professionals cost money. And money is something people always think they can outsmart. So instead, he decided to build his own. A bridge. Old, quiet, unused. The kind of place that feels perfect for something like this. Private. Open. No one to stop you. No one to question you. Which also means no one to correct you. He had a cord. Strong, elastic, industrial. The kind that looks like it could handle anything. And to him, that was enough. Now let's pause, because bungee jumping is not about the jump. It's about the stop. That moment where downward motion turns into upward motion, where energy is absorbed and returned. And that requires precision, exact length, exact elasticity, exact anchor point, exact calculation of drop distance. Too short, you snap. Too long, you don't stop. There is no close enough. But he didn't calculate, he estimated, looked over the edge, guessed the distance, eyeballed it. Because human intuition is very confident and very wrong when it comes to scale, especially vertical scale. But it looked fine. The cord looked long enough. The drop didn't look that far. Everything felt reasonable. And reasonable is dangerous when you're dealing with exact systems. He ties it off, double-checks the knot, because knots feel like safety, even when the system itself isn't. Friends around him, Phones out. Because again, this isn't just an experience, it's content. He straps in, secure, tight, everything in place. And for a moment, it feels real, legitimate, like he built something that works. That's the illusion, because setup is the only part he controlled. Everything after belongs to physics. He climbs up, stands at the edge, looks down, and now there's a hesitation, small but real, because instinct always shows up, even when logic doesn't. That quiet voice, "Are you sure?" But commitment overrides it, because backing out now means admitting something. So he jumps. And the first part feels exactly like he expected. Free fall, fast, clean, the rush, the drop. That moment where everything disappears except motion. And for a second, he's right. It works. He's falling, exactly like bungee jumping. But here's the difference. In real bungee, this is where the system takes over. The cord stretches, slows you down, transitions you safely. Here, it doesn't. Because the cord length was wrong. Not by much, just enough. Enough to remove the part where deceleration happens. Enough to remove the part where energy gets absorbed. So instead of stretch, there's delay. And then, nothing. No resistance, no slowing. Just continued motion. Down. Uninterrupted. Because the system he built never had a stopping point. It only had a start. And that's the problem. Because in systems like this, the ending is everything. The jump isn't dangerous. The stop is. And he didn't build one. The impact is not dramatic. It's final. Because nothing intervenes. Nothing reduces the force. Nothing changes the outcome. And afterward, everything looks the same. The bridge, the cord, the setup, all still there. Because nothing broke. Nothing failed. The system worked exactly as it was built. It just wasn't built to save him. Because in the end, he didn't lose to the fall. He didn't lose to bad luck. He lost to approximation. To the belief that precision is optional. That if something looks close enough, it is. But physics doesn't accept estimates. It requires exactness. And when you don't give it that, it doesn't correct you. It completes the equation. Number 10. The jump that was never meant for beginners. There are some activities that don't have a beginner version. No soft entry. No safe mode. No, just try it once. You either know what you're doing or you don't do it. Base jumping is one of them. Because unlike skydiving, there's no altitude to fix mistakes. No time to recover. No space to think. You jump, and whatever you did before that moment is the only thing you have left. He didn't understand that, because from the outside, it looks simple. People step off cliffs, parachute opens, they glide down. Clean, controlled, almost peaceful. And after watching enough of that, it stops looking like something you train for. It starts looking like something you can do. That's the shift, from respect to imitation. He found the gear, secondhand, affordable, because new equipment costs more, and experience costs even more. But to him, gear was the barrier, not skill. Once you remove the barrier, you're in. That's the logic. He read just enough, watched just enough, understood just enough to feel confident, not enough to be correct. Now let's pause, because base jumping isn't about falling. It's about what happens immediately after. Exit position, body stability, deployment timing, canopy control. Every step has to be exact. Not close, exact. Because the margin for error is almost zero. And zero margin doesn't forgive learning curves. He reaches the edge, a real cliff. Not controlled, not monitored, just open air and distance. A long distance. He looks out, wind moving across the face, subtle but present. And wind at this level changes everything. But to him, it's just air. The same mistake again, reducing complex systems into simple ideas. He steps closer, checks the rig. Everything looks right, feels right, and that's enough. Because feeling ready is often mistaken for being ready. There's a pause, a moment, because instinct always tries one last time. Maybe not. But ego is louder, because turning back means admitting something. So he steps off, and for a fraction of a second, it feels exactly like the videos. Weightless, silent, perfect. That brief moment where everything matches expectation, then reality begins. His body position is wrong. Not dramatically, just slightly unstable, but slight instability at this stage is everything. Because the air catches him unevenly, rotates him, not fully, just enough. Enough to disrupt alignment, enough to affect deployment. He reaches, pulls. The canopy deploys, but not clean, not symmetrical. Because deployment isn't just a pull, it's timing, position, sequence. And he doesn't have it. The parachute opens, but off-axis. One side catches more air, the other less. And now, instead of control, there's rotation. Fast, unstable. Because once imbalance starts, it builds. The ground is already close, too close. There's no time to correct, no altitude to stabilize, no second attempt. Just the direct result of everything that happened before the jump, and everything that didn't. Because what he skipped wasn't small. It was the entire process, the part that turns falling into flight. The cliff remains, still, unchanged, because it didn't cause anything. It just existed, exactly as it always has. The system worked. Air behaved like air. Gravity behaved like gravity. The parachute did exactly what it could, given the conditions it was given. The only thing missing was the part that makes all of this survivable: understanding. Because in the end, he didn't lose to the jump. He didn't lose to the gear. He lost to the assumption that some things can be learned in pieces, that you can skip to the end and still get the result. But some systems only work when you respect the entire process. And when you don't, they don't fail slowly, they fail instantly. 10 different people, 10 different places, 10 different ideas, but the same mistake every time. They didn't misunderstand danger, they underestimated it. They thought, I'm close enough. Close enough to try, close enough to handle it, close enough to skip the hard part. But close enough doesn't exist here. Because these aren't activities you experiment with. They're systems you either understand or you don't survive. Extreme sports didn't kill them. Confidence without competence did. Which one made you pause? Not the craziest. The one that felt a little too possible. Drop the number. And be honest, which one do you think you would have tried?